Before we start the show, just a quick note to let you know that this episode of the Women in Media podcast is going to sound a little different. Musician Frank Turner curates a 4-day annual music festival called Lost Evenings, and this September, he brought it to the Great Canadian Casino Resort in Toronto for year 7. And yes, Frank plays all 4 nights of this music festival and brings in a ton of amazing artists to perform along with him on various stages. But one really cool thing about Lost Evenings is there was a ton of daytime programming, including showcases, open mic sessions, masterclasses, and panels. And that's exactly what you are about to hear. Hi, how are you feeling? It's day 3 of Lost Evenings. Are we alive? I'm Sarah Burke, if we've never met. I am a broadcaster, a podcaster, and the host of the Women in Media podcast. Today we have a podcast live taping. So I've got some special guests with me to talk about the state of the music industry as it pertains to women in music who are also in that media spotlight. So I want to start with introducing the panelists and thanking them for being here. Please tell us your name, where you are based, and how you got into the music industry.
My name's Hannah Rose Platt. Thanks for having me. So I'm from the UK, from Liverpool. My Scouse accent has gone up since seeing Dougie this weekend, if anyone is Dougie. I'm signed to Xtra Mile Records. I've been on them for a couple of years. And what got me into the music industry was just watching my lovely stepdad play guitar and write songs and sort of learn by osmosis and then not quit. Just not look back.
And what about your current project too?
Yeah, so my current project is quite apt for this panel, actually. So I'm about to release my second record on Xtra Mile in 2025. And it's all about untold stories about women's health, misdiagnoses and myths surrounding women's health from like the ancient Greeks to present day. So it was a hefty topic, a bit of light Christmas reading I did. But really excited to release that next year.
We're going to need a separate conversation on this podcast about that. Next up, we have Cristina Fernandes, who is also based here in Toronto. And tell us about your big 20th anniversary of your company and what you do.
Hi, everybody. Before I say that, can I say I've been here since Thursday? Frank Turner's fans are the absolute best fans.
Round of applause for the fans.
Thank you for being here. I do Frank's publicity for Canada. I have a company called Listen Harder and handle a lot of great artists. And yeah, it's our 20th anniversary this year, which is crazy, but pretty exciting. So yeah, that's me.
Before we move on, name a few of the artists, just that the crowd may or may not be familiar with. Come on.
Bare Naked Ladies, Alexis on Fire, City in Color, and then international artists like the Lumineers I do for Canada. So yeah, some really cool artists that we get to work with.
Okay, fresh off an album release. Next up, JJ Wilde.
Hello, my name is JJ Wilde. I am a recording artist. I just released my second album yesterday, actually. Thank you. It's called Vices, and it's been a long process, but I'm so glad it's out. I have been pursuing music in one way or another since I was 18. It started with a love of music for my family, just listening, like always having music on in the home. And then my brother is an amazing musician, taught me how to play guitar, and it just kind of escalated from there. I did open mics, and I just, would take any bar gig that I could get, and then eventually, after years of trying that, I got signed to Black Box, which is an independent Canadian record label here. And it's been about 4 or 5 years. I don't even know how many years now, but I'm loving it.
They're now in a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
And last but not least on our panel, you may see her scoot out because she's like running a lot of things today at Lost Evenings. But give us the full rundown on Tre Stead.
Hello, hi, I'm Tree. I'm Frank's tour manager, Frank Turner's tour manager. You guys are obviously here at Lost Evenings Festival. Yeah. Big clap for that, obviously. I'm his tour manager. I have been for around 12 years now. But also my current project is this festival that you are sitting in. Myself and Dougie, Frank's production manager, organised this entire festival and run it. He's running all the tech. I'm running all the backstage stuff, and it's So which is why I'm seated on the end, and if something horrible happens, I may need to run away. Nothing anyone has done here. Everything else, but we'll probably get through it. I think we will.
I like for us to get to know the audience. We're speaking too quickly. So can I hear you if you are a fan of music? Is that what brought you to this panel? Okay, great. Do we have any aspiring musicians? Make some noise if you're an aspiring musician. Just a few hoo-hoos, that's it? Back there?
Over there.
All right, yeah. All right. How about some noise if you're from Canada? All right, lots of Canadian fans. How about some noise if you've come in for Lost Evenings from somewhere else? Okay, so we're like a half and half international Canadian audience, so just to guide our conversation a bit, I thought we'd start with the current state of the music industry and what we are finding in support of women in music, because I think things have greatly improved since at least I started in the industry when I've been working in, terrestrial and satellite radio for 15 years before running a podcast network, which specializes in women's content. And things are better. There's still work to do. So just some comments on sort of how you're currently feeling about supports for women in the industry and things that maybe weren't there before. Hannah, let's start with you.
It's a really good question. I think it definitely has got better. And the first thing that came to mind when I heard your question was, and you'll probably relate to this as well, JJ, walking into clubs with my guitar and people not taking me seriously until I took it out the case and it was a Gibson.
Oh my goodness.
So it would be 18 sort of going into the club and sort of nobody sort of taking you seriously. You get your guitar out and they're like, oh, that's a real guitar. Can you play it? And I'm like, no, I just carry it around really. Just exercise this left arm. And then, it's got to be subtle changes over the years. It's been a long time now, but I just don't find that anymore. Walk into a room and people take you seriously. There's more community, I think. And I think social media has helped as well with all that, and finding with the women.
Even in you and I, following each other on social media before we even met this week, it's there's a kind of comfort in knowing that we're in it together.
Absolutely.
When you say?
Yeah.
Cristina, what about you? And maybe you'll comment specifically on PR and publicity.
Yes.
You've been in the game a long time.
As the elder on the panel. Because I actually started my career in 91 doing radio promo, which is a very male-dominated, even to this day, I'd say it's very male-dominated. Yes. And when I tell young women in the industry some of the shit that I dealt with, they can't believe, they believe me, but they're horrified. So just trying to do your job and then having music directors saying, oh, you have a sexy voice when you come into Calgary, and, just having to deal with that constantly.
About the record I'm trying to...
Exactly. Yeah. And then, and this literally happened to me walking into a label office for a meeting and having someone who worked there grab me, try to make me sit on his lap. And so that was the kind of stuff that we had to deal with. And thankfully, that's changed. I know I'm naive to suggest that,
There's not work.
Yeah, for sure. But I think one of the things that has changed, which is incredible, JJ's publicist, Charlotte from Red Umbrella, and I are very close. And back in my day, there was one specific person who tried to discredit me and spectacularly failed, thank goodness, but it was an awful thing to go through. And now we just have these friendships. And as Charlotte said when she did an interview, even though we run separate PR companies, we know we can still come together, work together, support each other, share media lists, which was unheard of when I came up. And I think that is a really wonderful thing of the current state of the industry.
Yeah, for sure. And that comes back to that word community, I think, too. There was a time where female radio announcers were fighting for that one spot in the day part that they knew would be a woman, and now you're like, oh, there's women back to back, and even women as artists back to back in airplay. All of that is getting better. Yeah. JJ, current state, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that. That was kind of what I was going to say. Is I feel like, in the industry right now, especially in the pop scene, but in almost every scene, women seem to be dominating, and I love to see it. And it goes back to that point of, historically it's felt like if there's two successful women, there can't be. they have to fight each other for that one spot at the top. And why can't there be more than one successful woman? Why does it have to feel like it's a competition? I feel like that's a societal value that's been kind of shoved down our throats, that like, oh, she's not a friend, she's competition. Yes. And I feel like that is more and more subsiding, and that makes me happy, because that's not how it should be. That's completely backwards. And I feel like that is just something that society has kind of put on us. So that, to me, is the biggest change. And I feel like social media, like that landscape there's a positive, but there's also a negative to that, because you have the outreach capabilities of social media, like messaging and finding friends and that, but there's also the constant comparison of, oh, I don't look like them, or I don't sound like them, and you're constantly seeing other artists succeeding and doing great, and you want to be happy for them, and that goes back to that point of like, it shouldn't be a competition. You should be allowed to be happy for other people's successes. So I feel like that is getting better, and that's what I like to see.
I will quickly piggyback on that just to reflect on JJ won in Canada here. Who's heard of the Juno Awards? Okay, great. International friends. So that is our biggest night in music here in Canada. And JJ won a Rock Album of the Year award. I remember interviewing you about this for your first record. And at the time, we were being like, she's the first woman to do this since Alanis Morissette. And it was like the biggest headline. And I think our hope as a collective is that we're no longer calling it like the next person to do that since the 90s, that it's just like kind of an all the time thing. Yeah. Tre, tell us about it from the tour management perspective.
I think there's so many similarities between being an artist and a female in the industry and being crew, as it is, as same as Cristina, just being in the background and sort of doing all the behind the scenes work, because it is. I honestly think so. So many points that Cristina made are so valid. I started. I've been doing this 20 odd years, and I started in the early 2000s, and I had. Same as Hannah. One of the last gig I did as sound, because I just studied to be a sound engineer. I thought that's what I wanted to do. But I walked into a venue with a female artist, myself, and another 19-year-old girl who was we were doing sound together because we were young and scared. And the guy just basically went, "Oh, how long have you guys been doing this?" And we went, "Oh, a couple of years." "Oh yeah, I can tell." It was difficult. It was really difficult. And I was actually, my tutors and stuff, my female tutors, mentioned things like wear heels so that you're on the same level as guys when you're talking to them. And I don't wear makeup now so that I don't get accidentally thought of to be the girlfriend, and I can actually get work done. It's getting a lot easier. It definitely is getting a lot easier. I think there has been a lot of changes. I think there's a lot more support for all of us. And when I do panels like this and I go and do talks with universities and stuff, there's so many women in the audience now, and that fills my heart with joy, honestly. And like just seeing that women don't feel intimidated to get into the industry. I was the only person on my course of 60 that was female.
Hell yeah, by the way. Yeah.
Third in my year.
I also, while we're cheering, this panel is put on in partnership with the Ally Coalition with Lost Evenings, and I am pleased to see so many men in the audience. So a round of applause for you for showing up for this. So we've talked a little bit about the things that have been improving, and we're not here to bash men or anything like that, but there are some things that definitely require a little more attention and some focus to improve. So what are some of those gaps that you're seeing in your day-to-day work that you would really like to, whether you're participating in it or a call out to others to participate? What are some of those things that you're feeling very passionate about needing more work, Hannah?
For me, the first thing that comes to mind is leave more space for people to talk in whatever setting that is, because I do a bit of freelance teaching as well back in the UK, and it's so interesting when I look around a room and someone, we say, who wants to play this or who wants to have a go at this, and you can see mostly women holding back, very, very timid, frightened to have a go, and what you need to do, and I think in that scenario, is rather than just letting the first takers take the space, push back, give some space, pause and allow people to actually get the confidence to come forward and gently encourage them. And whatever setting that is, I think that's what needs to happen.
That's been like my biggest lesson learned since I moved out of radio. Was a lot about me talking, and now when I'm interviewing people on this podcast, it's about listening and making space for them to speak. So that really resonates with me, and thank you for that. Cristina, what would you add to that?
That's a really, really great answer, because that does happen a lot. As a woman, you feel like, well, maybe I'll wait until they finish. Yeah, totally. But I think listening and saying, I don't know, and listening to people and asking questions from underrepresented groups. Yes. And how do we support you? How do I support you? I'm not going to assume how I support you. And I think that how can we amplify those messages? Yeah. I think is something that we can work on.
As a white girl hosting this panel, I have to say, I recognize that there are all white women at the table right now, and I wish we had more diversity on this panel. But that's where, in our day-to-day life too, where can we ask questions about how we can involve others, how we can make things more accessible to others, more conversations where we can put other people, first and amplify other voices. It's such an important part of it. We're going to talk more about this. So thank you for that. JJ, something that you feel needs a lot of work right now.
I think, coming from an artist in the music industry specifically, but I think it happens more than just the music industry, is ageism. And that is a huge problem, making women feel like past 30 or 35, you're disposable or you're less marketable, or, you should be proud of your wisdom and your strength that you've gained over the years. That should not be something that you should be trying to make yourself look younger so you can be more marketable to your team. I think that's, excuse my language, fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Round of applause for that, please. Yep. First F word. we were like, oh, are we allowed to swear? Yeah, you're allowed to fucking swear. You say what you need to say. Great point. And I look at the Emmys and Jean Smart and, what happened later in Jean Smart's career. Who cares what that age, what that number is? You can be inspired at any time in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Tre.
I think everyone's literally just pointed out so many of the things. There is actually so much. It's so many nuanced little things that need to be improved and that can just really help. And I think that maybe I'm a rose-tinted glasses kind of girl, but I think the fact that we're having these conversations and that people can bring in all these little things to the conversation is incredible, because, and that's down to podcasts and social media and all these sorts of things, because these aren't conversations that were had before the rise of this sort of technology. And so, you sort of think like you've got it bad, and then you've got, the other points of view that other people have that you hadn't even thought of, and you just put to the back of your mind things that you ignore because, you have other issues trying to do your job in this industry. It's fascinating to hear everyone else's points. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So I want to get back to this allyship point, and maybe we each have a story that we can share about how we're making sure that allyship is kind of at the forefront. If there's maybe even from a perspective of like Frank bringing in a women's panel to Lost Evenings. Talk about allyship. I just think that is a great start. But when we're also talking about representation and amplifying other voices, whether it's you outwardly, or is that a word, outwardly? Reaching out, or how someone has supported you as an ally. I would love to hear a personal story from everyone. Tre, yeah.
Touching on representation, and I'm sure a lot of fans are here, and if you don't already know, Frank picks all of his supports himself. There isn't any labels paying us money to sneak somebody on a bill. That sort of stuff does happen. Sorry if that's shattered any illusions for anybody. Not all the time, but it's industry. So he does handpick. He is very, very adamant about making sure there is diversity on every single one. And if there isn't, enough female artists, or people of color or anything like that on his, on his sort of wants list. Do you know what I mean? Like, he'll make sure that it's that he goes out and
finds it.
Makes it, just representative. And there's not everybody does that, and I think it's so. And working for him, I feel that. Do you know what I mean? Like even with our crew, at the minute it is just myself who's female, but we had a couple of months ago we had female crew. We had over the years we had people in and out. They're all very good, so they just keep getting stolen by like Kylie and stuff. So which is fair. Yeah. Our old lighting designer is now working on Kylie. So you know, and there are good people out there doing that, and it's really really great.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go to JJ now.
Yeah. So I mean, well, for me, I guess I'm going on tour this October to November, and for me, it was really important to have a female group open for me, just to give that representation, because I, in the industry, have been the female opener for like all guy rock bands my entire career. Yeah. And I'm like, that's great as well. You know, there's a place for everybody. But for me, it was really important to pick, you know, an up and coming young female group to give them a chance of playing to bigger audiences and getting experience touring, much like I was able to do at the beginning of my career. So for me, that was, you know, I felt that was really important. And another example, last night, actually, I played a festival in Cambridge called Festival, and I'm friends with the organizer, and we were kind of talking about the festival, and he put up a all-women's night showcase where every band, and it was all like alt rock, you know, rock or alternative, whatever. Every band was either female fronted or all female. And I thought that was really cool. I don't see a ton of festivals doing, here's your night, not here's one band on the bill of 20. Here's a night dedicated to you. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, that is really cool. And by the way, who's opening for you? You can drop some names.
Fionn.
Yeah, very cool.
A sister duo.
Okay, so you can check them out. Bring them up on your Spotify along with Rose, Platt, and JJ. Please make sure that you're following along and subscribing to all their music and everything. Okay, Cristina.
So my husband is from European and Indigenous ancestry, and my sister-in-law, who's freaking amazing, she works representing Indigenous public servants, like the recruitment, retention, and professional development. So I just go to her. Yeah. I just want to listen and ask questions, and I feel that that's my role, so that I can learn again to amplify and advocate for the artists that we work with, because we work with a lot. We have queer artists on our roster, people of color. It runs the gamut, really. We listen hard music. We do a lot of hardcore, a lot of punk. But that's I like to be. I think humility is important.
Such a good word here. Yeah. And because you've been doing this for so long, like these again were conversations that weren't really ever happening, let's say 20 years ago. It's great that we're having them now. But for example, when an artist like Dallas Green and you are discussing how your PR publicity is going to go for him announcing, let's say, an Indigenous bursary. I'm just
Alexis on Fire and City and Color have an Indigenous bursary, which is wonderful. And they raise money every time they go on tour for Indigenous youth. So it gives working with people like that also fuels you.
And I would say that, by asking questions and listening, you're better equipped as a publicist of framing all that good work that's being done with artists who are trying to bring in those other voices.
Absolutely.
So, Hannah, what's going on over in the UK? Tell us.
For me, it's similar to JJ, really. Yeah. For me, if I have a show and I need openers, I try to actively look for the introverts that are not maybe pushing and shouting too loud about what it is they're doing, because I just feel like, in my experience, we're missing out on so much gold because these people are often a little too shy. They often are women, sometimes not. So it's trying to find those gems and giving them a platform and giving them a chance to share what they do, really.
Yeah. Tre, jump back in.
It's interestingly enough, but both of you have said that as well, because I know that it's again an issue in the comedy circuit as well, of having representation, having female comedians on bills, and I have friends that are comedians, and it's a constant battle. And I saw very recently that someone had posted up that they have made themselves a list of all the touring in UK, all the touring female comedians that can be given to anybody booking shows who is struggling and doesn't seem to be able to find any in order to diversify the lineups, and it's just not just white men, and the same goes for now. I have a lot of female crew friends, and there's now been a Google document list made by us, by others, and anyone can be added to it, and it is so that people can find other female crew. And a lot of the times when you have female production managers and tour managers, and we have a WhatsApp group, and when they will just go, anyone know a female lampy? Anyone know a female? This. A lot of bands are asking for that diversity too now as well. Like this specifically, there was a time after COVID where it was difficult to get crew, and you're at a point where you just need somebody. But now again, people have the luxury a little bit, and people and artists specifying to work with female or non-binary crew is becoming so much more prevalent, which is amazing.
Even in engineering and production, I just want to say there's so many fabulous women coming up in that scene, and oftentimes like they're not always first up for the job, right? So by continuing to amplify within our communities, we're just making sure that someone always knows that there's a gig for the taking. So I want to talk about our most defining sort of moments in music and media, and I want to have that, backdrop of why your superpowers as a woman have made you think about that moment specifically. So I think it's a two-sided coin here, right? Like there's big challenges because we are women, but there are also really defining moments where we're so proud of ourselves or we felt empowered. So talk about both sides of the coin and defining moments in your careers. Hannah, I want to go back to you.
No moment to think about that one, really. Defining moments as in when feeling empowered by another woman. Is that what you mean?
Or by not women.
Well, I'll go for the first thing that came to my head. I was a student back in the day in London, and an amazing female musician, songwriter, and songwriting teacher was sort of head of the program. And again, maybe this is where I get my looking for the introverts thing from, because I was really quite a quiet student. I was going through quite a difficult time behind the scenes, and she just spotted something in me and just wouldn't quit. She just sort of wouldn't quit until I believed in myself. And it sounds so obvious because she asked me what my dreams were. There we go, asking someone is the first step. And I told her, and she was the first person that she didn't see any reason why I couldn't do it. And it was just that sort of non-reaction. She was like, okay, so how are we going to do this?
Okay, what's the plan?
This is what you want, so we break it down, and then you start. And it sounds so obvious, but it was a real shift, and I owe her a lot. She's fantastic. Her name is Sophie Daniels.
The imposter syndrome thing kind of comes up here, and I feel like we've probably all experienced that. Cristina, is there a moment in your career where you, whether it was like feeling like you finally made it in PR or where you felt confident in your own skin?
I often have imposter syndrome. I'm sure none of us are stranger to that. And I'll tell you a little story. This magazine in Canada did a profile on me recently. And I was sitting in a room at Dynalone Records, which I've done a lot of stuff for Dynalone Records. And I looked up at the wall, and all of the platinum awards were all albums that I had worked, like Alexis on Fire, Bedouin Sound Clash, City in Color. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. And it just, it's so funny that I had that feeling. But I really enjoy doing panels, especially when they're educational panels. And young people will come up to me and say, how do I do what you do? I have a communications degree. I'm in business, music school. And the truth is, you can't. It's all about connections that you make. You could be really good at writing a press release, but that doesn't mean a media person's going to reply to your email when you're pitching your artist because they don't know who you are. So you really have to go, probably like a comedian, who has to start and just, grind in these little clubs, and then that's how you get to where you are.
There's a bar scene NPR too.
Yeah, totally. So I really, sometimes it's difficult for me to sit back and go, but it is our 20th anniversary this year, which is incredible that I've been in business for that long. And then as far as like career highlights, even just like seeing Alexis on Fire play in a club the size of a postage stamp, and these kids are just jumping on the stage, the walls are sweating, and I'm standing there and I'm just getting goosebumps watching them. And then to go from that and, oh, they're playing the Much Music Awards. They're playing, which is kind of like our MTV, for those who don't know, the Junos, which is like kind of like Grammys. They're playing Budweiser stage, huge venue here. They just played at Rogers Center, where the Blue Jays play
Baseball
with Blink
team.
182, and then to be along that ride with them, and also Bedouin Soundclash, same Junos, you know, all that stuff, and then City and Color to see Dallas, you know, and his solo record and all the success that he's had, but also for myself to go from, oh shit, I got to do a red carpet. I don't know what to do. Like, it's so intimidating, you know, there's all this press, and you're walking along the red carpet
You
trying
brought
to...
me Alexis on Fire on the red carpet.
Yes, I have. Yeah, it's true. And then, so I've grown along the way, and my company has grown along the way. So I would say that's probably... And also, my son, who's 28, I'm very proud of him. He's, a couple years ago, he asked if he could work for me, if he could be my publicist. And so it's been great to mentor him, because that means I will eventually be able to retire. But yeah, that's been really wonderful, seeing him grow and teaching him and having him alongside me, because he's been around Alexis and all these guys since he was 9 years old. So yeah, anyways, yeah.
I'm going to go to Tre next. I'm coming back to you, JJ. But is there a moment where, you know, the tour manager thing really felt like everything was in its right place?
Yeah, it's definitely in terms of like not quite a sort of moment that defines it, but just sort of sets up the fact that I'm female in the industry. It's not a one thing; it was a continuous thing. But I was explaining to some guys earlier. So my name is Tre. That is not my real name. My name is Teresa. And at school I was called Tre, and that stuck. It's not my choice. But in the UK, Tre, spelled T-R-E, is not a name. It's not a thing. However, in the US, T-R-E is Tre, and that is normally a guy's name. And
Did I not ask Cristina? I'm like, is this? I'm just making sure this is a woman on the panel.
Everyone calls me Tre Stead, and it's Tre Stead, but that's okay. I'm 43 years into it now. It doesn't matter. I don't take offence. But yeah, coming over to America and starting touring over in Northern America and US and Canada, it became very apparent very quickly that most people thought I was a guy. And especially on emails, they'd be like, yeah, dude, looking forward to having you guys. I'm like, okay. And actually, this is, bearing in mind as well, this is in the times before you put pronouns on the end of your name. Where actually, I don't really do it now, but there was a point about 10 years ago where I was talking to people about whether I should put, by the way, I'm a female at the end, at the end of my name. I didn't know how to do it, and now it's a thing, so that's cool. It's probably more jarring for other people now than it is for me, because I come across it so much. But it's definitely a case of trying to use it to your advantage. I'm not going to get offended by it, but I'm going to definitely, when I meet a new promoter and they're like, oh. Which is the first look I get.
And you're like, yeah, I do run shit.
I'm like, cool, element of surprise. This is where you ask for extra stuff, right? Totally works. Yeah, just get them while they're still processing. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm just always going to, I sort of realise I can use this slightly to my advantage, and, you know, but to like also get on and like meet people and have a sort of a good icebreaker when you're about to do a ton of work. Yeah. But in terms of career highlights, definitely tooting my own horn right now.
That's what we're doing.
Is winning my first Tour Manager of the Year award.
Amazing.
That's a 2, which was 10 years ago now, which is insane. And I didn't know. I actually won. This is really funny. So I got an award. It's glass. It's really spiky. It's a star. Like it's. Oh my God, so sharp. And they did the whole thing. And I was like, do I have to do a speech? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Turns out I didn't have to do a speech. So the thing I'd written was redundant because I didn't know. And and they went, oh, do the wall. You got to hold the thing. Because I don't know how to hold an award. The pictures of me are holding it like a baby, like cradling it. I didn't know you. I wasn't prepared to like do a thing where I present it. Because I'm not a famous person. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, this is where Hannah's point kind of makes sense about them giving space for women to say thank you to their audience too. Come on.
There was a room full of crew people. Do you know what I mean? I don't know anyone cared at that point. Everyone just wanted to get drunk. So it was fine. I did not need to do a speech. No one needed to hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, cradling it like a baby, and and so all my pictures from that day just looked terrible. It doesn't look terrible, but. At the end of the day, I was young. I think I was the only female on the 5 finalists. I did not know I was getting nominated. And I found out when someone texted me and went, "Congratulations on nomination." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I was probably the only person working for an independent artist. Really, everyone else was. It was One Direction's tour manager I was up against. And
no big deal.
Tour manager. Yeah, absolutely. Like real. Like big artists, do you know what I mean? As far as I'm concerned, and doing that and then them saying my name and having an award, it's incredible, absolutely incredible, and so very proud of myself.
As you should be, and also you should hear the way that Frank talks about his team, and there's a reason he loves his team. So, okay, JJ, I feel like we talked a little bit about awards here. Like we've talked Junos, right? We've talked tour manager awards. Is it an award that's one of those moments for you, or is it something you got to do without anyone telling you what to do? Like, what's that moment for you?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the Juno Award, because it was the first time in 25 years, which to me, it seemed like, why such a gap? There's no shortage of talented women in the rock space. It was for Rock Album of the Year. And I was so grateful, obviously, and, kind of shocked, and it was surreal and everything. And then after that passed, the question then was like, but why 25 years? And for me, I'm proud of this because obviously I'm proud of my album for doing that, but I'm also proud that I do feel like that opened the door in a way for other women to be recognized. And I feel like that was kind of like a bit of a catalyst of like everybody noticed it had been 25 years because everybody kept talking about it. And I feel like that did kind of go back to the committee and be like, ooh, that's not a good look, is it?
And this didn't just happen in rock. Like what's coming up for me right now in country music here in Canada, it was like Shania to Lindsay L, I think, for number ones, if I have it correctly. And there's always these big gaps, but now people are like, oh, that's not acceptable for it to be that long. What about something that's not award related? I feel like you have one.
I mean, yeah, for me, standing up for myself as a woman in the rock industry, it always makes me proud of myself. There was one thing that I can think of that doesn't seem like a big deal, but I was meeting somebody in PR, and they came to my show, and we were in the green room, and I had my photographer there with me, and he was addressing all of his questions to my photographer, who was the only other man in the room. And he didn't know he was my photographer. He assumed that he was my tour manager, but I was tour managing my own tour on that tour. So I just stopped and I looked at him. I was like, you can address me. I hired him. I'm paying him. Like, what? Yes. Yeah. So that I was proud of myself, and I'm sure I kind of made him feel like an ass, but like I think he needed to hear that.
Whatever. I just want to like lean into feminism for a second and like our feminine superpowers. There was a time I remember where a boss was speaking to me about something that had gone wrong, and I got emotional about how I was handling it, and he asked me if I needed to go home for the afternoon. And
did he ask you if you were on your period?
I remember looking at him and being like, no, like we're talking about the thing, aren't we? Like I was dumbfounded that he thought that I wanted to go home. I was like, I think I'm emotional because we have to deal with this, right? But sometimes, like, especially in like, I feel like Tre, you're almost a caregiver for your crew, for your team, and
100%.
There's special things about being a woman that I feel like we used to maybe try and hide them and now we're stepping into them?
Again, I feel like a broken record. Just empathy, compassion, slowing down, giving space, listening, and giving yourself enough space to actually express yourself in the way you want to, rather than feeling like you need to rush with an answer or take up the space too fast, and maybe then you're regretting how you took up the space. I don't know. I just feel like slowing down, listening, empathy.
You're not a broken record. You just have a very strong point that keeps coming up. Christina?
Well, I think it's really important. Like when I first met Frank in April and we were driving around the city doing press, I heard all about you guys, and he was just propping you up and saying, I can't wait for you to meet Tre, and she doesn't suffer fools. and just, hearing how he speaks and how he, supports you guys is just incredible. And even JJ, Charlotte, because I've been friends with her quite a while.
JJ's publicist, JJ's publicist,
Red Umbrella. And from the get-go, when she started working with you, and it's just us having a friend conversation, and she's talking about you and what you represent and the things you have to deal with. And I think just having more of those conversations and putting other people in the spotlight, I think, is important.
Yeah. Over to you, JJ.
I think my superpower as a woman is my intuition. And I think we all have a very deep-seated intuition that, society has kind of tried to not take away in a sense, but, you have that feeling when something's wrong, and then you have your head of what you've been told and what has been kind of like, dialed in as like, oh, no, but it's okay because this or this. But in your heart and in your intuition, in your gut, what is right and what is wrong. And I feel like, as I progress in my career, I've stopped making excuses for things that I feel are not where I want to be or what I want to do or whatever the situation is, or if it is good, if it's a direction I want to go. I think the superpower is listening to that and not letting the societal values of what's been drilled into your head of what you should do, should this, whatever. It's like, just listen to that, because it's never wrong.
Okay, Tre?
I think you mentioned it right at the start there. Like it's us as women, we do have a very caring side, and especially in a particularly male-dominated part of the industry, which is crewing. There's my superpower which is kind of the reason why I ended up doing this, professionally, I guess, is because in the early 2000s I lived in London. We ran nightclubs, and I was around a lot of bands, and everybody was in a band. Everyone was in a band, but there weren't any tour managers. So it turns out that I got asked to do a lot of work, and that the reason for it, particularly, it was, we were coming out of the 90s British, in Britain at least, lad culture, where it was still everything's a bit blokey, and a lot
blokey,
did you just blokey. That's a totally normal term in the UK, and I guess it sounds quite weird over here. But yeah, I was getting a lot of work from guys I knew who were managers of indie bands, their bands were burning out because they were partying, because we were all in our 20s, and everyone was just like, cool, tour managing and being a guitar tech and doing sound is just partying with a band. Yeah, right, it was loads of fun. But they were just like, I had one particular artist who they thought had started doing crack too much, and I was asked to go on the tour, go through his bags and go and see if he was carrying. And I said, I'm not going to do that, because how on earth am I supposed to spend a month with this person when I violated their privacy immediately? That's not what is going to happen. But what I will do is I will look after him. And we were in a van tour. I think we were supporting We Are Scientists or something. And we got in the van, and I went, right, he's in the back. Everyone else up in the front, he's in the back row. There's a pillow, there's a blanket. Just go to sleep. We've been on like a 4-day bender, do you know what I mean? And just got in the van, and I was like, don't talk to him. He's going to sleep so we can actually do the show. And I was just like, here's some orange juice. Right, do you know what I mean? Everyone, is everyone hydrated? Have you been to the toilet? And I just
keeping the wheels on.
I I mothered them. I hate saying that, but I mean, like, I just cared instead of party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they needed that. They didn't need that quite so much testosterone in the van. Honestly,
They needed some estrogen.
Honestly, and by the end of the tour, they were no longer about to call his parents and send him to rehab. Like, that was where it was at the start. And at the end, he was like, I do want to go back to the hotel straight away. And I'm like, that's fine, let's do that.
You do you, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, I'm bringing the dude back for you. So we're almost at time here. I do want to say that, we'll stick around for a couple minutes, all except Tre, who literally needs to run because she's running shit. But I always end the podcast this way. Tell me about a woman in music who inspires you, who you admire, whose story you would maybe love to hear on a podcast like this. Hannah.
Okay, so does anyone remember a band called Republica?
Yes.
Yes. So Saffron Sprackling, do you know Saffron? Right, okay.
I don't know how I know of...
So I'll try and be quick. She would be great for your podcast. So I met her. I wasn't even on tour with them. My partner was playing bass for Toya Wilcox's band, and Saffron from Republica was supporting, and Freddie, who's over there somewhere, was playing bass for her. And I was just along for the show. We got chatting in a bar. She realised I was a musician. She's like, "Play me your stuff." I was like, okay, Saffron from Republica's asking me. So cool. So she listened. She's a massive horror fan. My last record was kind of horror, rock, folk. And she said, you should stay on this tour one more night because the head of my sync company, who owns like Jeff Beck's catalogue amongst many others, is coming and you should play him your music. So I was like, okay, I'll just go with this. So I stayed on for an extra night and... was backstage and he was there and she introduced me to him, and again I do need to get over this, quite timid, and she was like, right, have you got your laptop? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, go get it and play it for him right now. And she sort of sat there and wouldn't leave the room until I opened my laptop and played all my music for the CEO of this company, and he's lovely and we're really good friends now. And she's just one of these people, like, she's just the most kind, empathetic person I've ever met in music, and she's like this little candle. She just goes around like lighting everyone else up, and there's just no competition. There's no she's not territorial, and that is a rare breed in my experience. So yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Okay, Cristina.
Kel Shock. I'm going to say Charlotte Thompson. Yes, and from an industry perspective, and Trisha Prosciutto, who is Alexis and City and Colors management rep, and also Megan Simsick, head of Factor. She's had a storied career, as you know, working with Rush. And
if anyone is not familiar, Factor is our funding body.
Yeah. But from an artist perspective, Misha Louie, who fronts this, just look them up, Misha and the Spanks. Great, great punk band. She's a mom. She has these twin boys that are very young. She runs her own business, manages herself. She runs a girls' rock camp in Calgary, teaching young women how to produce, how to navigate this insane industry. And she comes from mixed Indigenous heritage, and her grandmother survived residential school, so she uses her music, to inform people. So I think that she would be really good. Yeah.
Awesome. JJ?
I'm going to pick Sally Shar from Monowales. Even though that band is no longer, she has so much to say and such a good message. She's such a light in the industry. She's one of those people that really just tries to lift everybody up. And as a woman in, the counterparts to her band were both male, so I feel like she does have a lot of perspective on being a woman in the industry and challenges and this and that, and I love her, so that would be my pick.
Okay, amazing. And Tre?
It's a joint nomination. So there's two women I know, Julie Channels and Nancy Skipper. They own a company called Ginger Ale in the UK, which is a events company, broadly speaking. They in layman's terms, they're most well known for running artist liaison backstage at UK festivals, everything. So Reading and Leeds, MTV Awards, Brit Awards, any Teenage Cancer Trust, anything that has several artists together, they'll pretty much be the people running the artist liaison. And I worked for them out in Saudi last year, a really massive festival, enormous festival. Look that stuff up on YouTube. It's insane how big that festival is. But with Kanye and Will Smith, and I had a week looking after Wu-Tang, and a week looking after, and then the next week looking after Backstreet Boys. But they had just had their 10-year anniversary of their company. They've been doing it for decades, but they just decided to make a company. And I had recently read an article about they've just won a bunch of awards for it, and just the fact that they said at one point, like, we don't deliberately try to employ just female or queer or people of colour, but I guess because it's in the back of their minds continuously, because they are in that category.
They embody it.
They have such a diverse bunch of people working for them everywhere. And they do have a couple of men, you know what I mean? But yeah, they really are making such a difference in that world, and yeah, they're doing so well, and they are such interesting people to talk to.
Amazing. A big thank you to all of our panelists for being here with us today. One more time, give it up for Tre Stead, JJ Wilde, Cristina Fernandes, Hannah Rose Platt. And thank you guys for being here during the day, during a music festival.